Hey everybody, it's Chris Kirkpatrick with Life 180, and I'm here in the BetterWealth studios with Caleb Williams, CEO of BetterWealth, and he has something he wants to show you. I think we've been talking about, well, a lot of stuff, I guess, over the last couple of days, but so just get into it, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot about outcomes, investing with the end in mind, and what's crazy to me is a lot of people are going into retirement. They're saving or investing in their 401k. They might be funding an and asset. They might be doing real estate. They might be building businesses. They might be selling businesses, and they may or may not understand a clear outcome. They
Sure.
may or may not be able to articulate that. One thing that's interesting is we see a lot of people, and I know you do too, that are like all in on what we call accumulation. This is like we are investing, we're saving, and the goal is to grow your assets. If we go back to the mountain analogy, your goal is to get a massive nest egg. I mean, there's been commercials. What's your number?
What's
it's
your
like,
number?
we want, like, we get in this idea of like, the market's doing great. That's
Right.
amazing for my nest egg. And what I want to do is, and everyone can do this. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to put us in the corner.
Nice.
This is Vanguard. This is retirement. If you just type in nest egg calculator, retirement nest egg calculator by Vanguard.
Yeah. Vanguard.
This will come up.
Nest egg calculator.
And I mean, I had Dr. Wade Fall on my podcast. I've had Jason Sanger on my podcast, and they've both talked about something that more people should be talking about. They talked about the problems with safe withdrawal rates. They talked about the problems with distribution plans, income plans, retirement plans. And they're pretty much saying that we just need to understand how these accounts work. And this calculator pretty much looks back in the future and runs over 100,000 simulations and just shows you how certain you could be to taking out certain money in retirement. Okay.
So it's like an updated Monte Carlo simulation?
Yeah, 100%.
For anybody who's familiar with what that is?
And Monte Carlo is that exact thing, like looking back and running the best and worst case scenarios. And so what we're going to do, Chris, because people are saying like the market's doing amazing, and if you look at history, it's average over 12%. Okay, we're going to take the past history, which, by the way, we could geek out about interest rates and all this. I don't think we're going to see another 100 years of that, but let's just assume we are. So we're going to then take, and you can do any kind of allocation. What we're going to do is we're going to do a 70-30. We can move this around. Sorry.
70-30.
Okay. 70% equities, 30% bonds. You could put more in cash. Okay. And what we're going to do is we are going to take out 4%, because that's what everyone is saying is the 4% rule. 4% rule in summary is pretty much saying whatever your number is at retirement, you can take about 4% out a year, adjusted for inflation, and you have a pretty good chance of having lasting that money 30 plus years. And a lot of times people would assume like you would just be taking your interest. Okay. So let's just say we take 4% out of $1 million. Do you want to say anything?
I would argue that number is lower than 4%.
Well, but I mean, you're teeing me up, man.
Okay. Sorry.
So if you run a 4% rule in this example, 10% of the time you run out of money.
Okay. And
what's actually interesting is we could push this back, let's say 20 years, 2% of the time at year 20, you have no money. So what's interesting is, Chris, if you were to get on an airplane and someone was to say, all right, we have a 90% chance of landing this plane safely, you and I would not be getting on that airplane. And that's just 4%. A lot of people assume, like I've seen some videos on YouTube that they're like, oh, the 5% is like super safe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so let's just do 5%. Like, okay. By the way, not financial advice here. Like we're just proving a point. But let's say you have $1 million at retirement. It could be 2 million, whatever. You can do the math here and you can go to this calculator. You taking out 5%, you have
22% chance of running out of money.
Yeah, 78% chance of having some kind of dollar at the end of 30 years. And by the way, like there's a lot of like it could just be bad.
Yeah.
Even if you go 20 years, let's go back to 20 years.
Yeah,
you still have an 8% chance of failure. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting to me, if you actually want to look at the real number, we're going to hover around 3%. And I promise you I'm going to have a good ending here, a thoughtful ending.
And that's gross, because like if you work to save $1 million to only be able to pull 30,000 a year out of that, not to mention the fact that like when you take 30,000 in inflation adjusted dollars, 20 years from now, that's going to be the equivalent of like $18,000 today. So that's just disgusting.
So I could play around with this in equities. It was a little bit worse, but we're still not perfect. depending on the asset allocation, you can get to about 99% with 3%. And here's the point that I want to make.
Okay.
Is this the American dream? Let's go back here. You've worked your entire life. You've had sacrifices. You've saved. You've invested. You've over time grown your assets in a crazy market. And yet so many people are shocked that they can take out 3% or 2.7 or 4%. Let's just even assume 4%. Like, that's not a lot of money.
No, not at all.
And we have to understand inflation is essentially people are getting crushed.
Yeah.
So here's the point. No matter what you want to accomplish, we want to be able to understand outcomes. We want to be able to look at, like, what do we actually want? And your 401k, your IRA, your Roth, your brokerage account, you might be looking at the metric of, like, I want to grow my assets, but make sure you're also working with someone that can help you translate the growth mind that you have into saying, how can I maximize the cash flow? And if you're watching this in retirement, there's hope.
Yep.
But if you're watching this before retirement, especially if you have 5 years before retirement, there's a lot of strategies that you can do. And if you're younger, if you have a lot more time, like I'm telling you, work with someone that understands that and that can help you take what you're doing with your money, where you're saving it, where you're investing it, and just help you maximize the outcome that you're hoping to accomplish. And so the Nest Egg calculator by Vanguard is super, super helpful. It's very eye-opening. There's a lot of people that come and work with us. They don't even know that this exists.
Right.
And it's just eye-opening because it's not something that I'm saying. It's like, this is actually data that not a lot of people want to talk about, because if Wall Street showed you this, Chris, if Wall Street showed you this, people would start asking questions to say, why am I spending 20, 30, 40, 50 years locking up my money, not able to control it? Like, that's not a great deal.
Right. And so what I would do on top of that, so what I would encourage everybody to do is play with that, mess around with it, get a feel for it. And then I would go, I'll put a link below, go to BetterWealth, and you guys actually created a calculator, and I'm not going to go through it right now, but it'll allow you to figure out, like, on the other side of things, like, what do you need to do to save? Because what are some other strategies and how can you look at it? And it's just kind of taking it to the next level. So I would mess with Vanguard. And then I would go to the BetterWealth one and mess with their calculator, because it's a great thing to do after you've gotten clarity on the Vanguard side. And if you go through that and you have any questions, I think at the bottom of this page somewhere along here,
you can get
an opportunity. You can get a free copy of Caleb's book, and he's doing all sorts of different things that can get people there. But I'll put a link for this down in the bottom and in the description of this video, and hopefully it'll serve people.
All right.
Rock and roll. All right, guys. I hope that helps. If you found value, go ahead and click the subscribe button, hit the bell, that way you get notified every single time we put out a new video, which we're trying to do a lot of nowadays. And look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk to you soon.